a YouTube channel now, so all of these videos and these webinar presentations will actually be out on YouTube for everybody to review. I'm sure there'll be questions throughout. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box, or we will have a Q&A session in the end. For everybody who has logged in, please make sure that you do have a name included when you log in, because when it reads like caller 01, caller 03, we don't have any clue who that is, and that is used for attendance so that we can send you your CE certificate. So make sure you get your name up there. Also, if you are meeting in any kind of a group or in a room, since only one person would be logged in, please make sure also to email either myself or Lee to let us know that you did attend, so that we can make sure we mark you attended and get your CE certificates out to you. So just as a final reminder, if you're not muted currently, please mute your phone. And at this point in time, we want to welcome you to our, well, not really lunch and learn. It's actually 1 o'clock meeting. Webinar on social media for HIM professionals, and that is going to be presented to us today by Leslie Hodds, who is the social media coordinator for the Florida Health Information Management Association. And Leslie is actually the lead administrator for FEHIMA's Facebook group, the Twitter account, the Instagram account that is there, and she served on the task force in the creation for the FEHIMA app that you can do on your Android or Apple products. In addition, she's been trained by LinkedIn to be an advanced user of their social platform, and is the director at Imagine Solutions, which is a leading provider of healthcare outsourcing solutions with a focus on health information management and related services. So without further ado, Leslie, I'm going to go ahead and give you as a presenter.
Perfect.
And let's get started. Thanks everybody for joining today.
Well, thank you everyone. Can you see my screen? Lee, can you confirm that?
I'm sorry, what was that, Leslie?
Can you see my screen? Do you see the presentation?
No, I cannot. So.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back. All right, share.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Let me go back to the top. So thank you for the lovely introduction. Like we said, my name is Leslie Hodds, FEHIMA Social Media Coordinator. I won't go through my bio. She just told you all, but I'm really pleased to be speaking with you this afternoon. I'm happy to take your questions. If they come up even after this presentation, I'll have my contact information at the end of this presentation, but you can also find me. I have my Twitter handles on this first screen. So, and I'm not going to be talking too much about the FEHIMA app, but I do want to give it a plug on the front end of this presentation. So if you have not downloaded it, I would go ahead and encourage you to download it. This is a little different than the conference app. So the FEHIMA state convention will have its own YAP app that's actually used at most of the state conventions across the country. But we have a year-round app that we really have positioned ourselves as a leader in the HIM, I guess, universe in America to have one of these apps where we try to put all of the resources that we think would be helpful for an HIM professional in one space. So like I said, it's free. Go ahead and find it in your app store for downloading, Android or on your Apple tablets and gadgets. So from there, we're going to talk a little bit about social media for HIM professionals. I will say when I do these sessions, I am usually talking to a pretty broad audience. So we have people who are basic users or not even users yet, and then we have some that are more advanced than the average bear. So what I'm going to try to do throughout the presentation is give tips for both types of users. So I'm kind of speaking to the broad audience, but again, your questions are encouraged. Additionally, we recently produced a very short Twitter how-to video that's about 6.5 minutes long. It sits on the NEFHIMA.org. I think it's on the front page right now. So if we go through this presentation and you kind of want to look at Twitter again, there's a very quick, as quick as I could possibly do it, any justice, a Twitter video for that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead. Why am I qualified to talk about this? We very quickly, I'll just go over the fact that I'm social media coordinator for NEFHIMA. I've been trained by LinkedIn, but also in my role at Imagine, I have hired literally thousands of HIM professionals over my 12-year tenure. And what that means is I have looked at probably thousands of HIM professionals' social media accounts. And I want to put that plug out there. If you are in the market for a new job, or even you work currently for somebody, don't think that your employer has not checked you out on social media. Some of you might be more locked down than others in terms of security features, and that's fine. I just want to make everybody aware that if you're on social media on any platform, you are you're public now, and therefore you should make sure that what you are putting out there, you want the public to see. So we'll go to the next slide. We're going to look at, and this is a little blurry, I apologize, but it was the best way the graphic came across. Basically, this is, go away. That's where the graphic came from. Basically, this is a graphic showing the total population across the world in terms of almost 7.5 billion people. You can see 3.7 billion of them are internet users. And then it goes down from there in terms of how many are actually engaging in social media, which you see the majority of those who have internet are social, and then how many are active on their mobile devices. So that's something else I wanted to kind of come up with some ways or some tips when you're using social media on your mobile device that might be helpful for you. And I'm trying to give this all from a perspective of HIM, joining the HIM conversation online, as well as your own personal branding for yourself, for your career, for being seen as a subject matter expert in your role. As HIM is changing, as the lay of the landscape changes with offshoring and things of that nature, we're trying to do whatever we can to make sure that we are robust and seen as subject matter experts out there. So I don't even know what all of these icons are, to be honest. I probably don't even know half of them. The point is there's many different social media platforms you can be on. We're not going to go through very many today. We're just going to focus on a couple that I have received the most questions from as a social media coordinator. And I think that if you just pick a few to be quote unquote an expert on, and you don't even have to be an expert on them, then you don't have to worry about everything out there. But just to point out that there are many platforms to be on. Here's a couple stats too, just so you can really understand. Facebook, if you weren't aware, Facebook is really the most prevalent social media network that we're using across the globe. It's far and above the others, as you can see in the graph on the right. Instagram has, if you can follow their kind of their arrow going upwards, they are very much growing comparative to Twitter and some of the others. They've seen the most significant growth in the industry, but again, most everybody is using Facebook, which is why in this presentation I only have dedicated one slide to Facebook. I find that is what most of the HIM professionals I'm working with have had the most experience with, and they have the most confidence in using, so I'd rather not speak to something that you all may be a little more well-versed on. And then you can see how often people on the left, you can see how often some people are actually checking in on those social media networks. So you can see most people are looking at Facebook on a daily basis, whereas LinkedIn, it's quite the opposite. So we're going to get HIM social. And this is a hashtag that we're really trying to get off the ground, so I'll talk about hashtags in a little bit. So first we're going to talk about Facebook. Like I said, this is my one slide for Facebook. We're just going to talk a little bit about personal branding tips for Facebook, and this is really a lot towards what I was mentioning earlier, the way that the world looks at you and views you from Facebook. I'm not going to read all of this out loud to you, but just some things to keep in mind, like filling in your professional details on your Facebook profile. If you care, to be seen as somebody who is in the know in HIM. That's what you want to be branded in. It's very hard to determine what your field is if you obviously don't have your professional details on there. If you don't want your professional details on there, or if you really don't want anybody to know what you do on Facebook, make sure to change your privacy settings. I'm not going to go through how to do that, but I can tell you if you start typing in Google changing your privacy settings, the steps pop up almost immediately at the top of the search. So, certainly look at that. You can turn on your tagging settings. So if you are concerned about a party you attended over the weekend and you don't want your friends tagging you, or you want to at least approve what they are doing, there's different levels of tagging approval. So I think I have it set on where I have to approve a tag before a tag actually happens. And that way I have a greater control of what's going on there. Link your Facebook page to other social accounts if you do want to be, again, connected throughout. Be selective on your profile picture. It's very hard from my perspective if you think from the administrator of the FEHIMA Facebook group. And if you're not on the FEHIMA Facebook group, I'll give it a plug. Please join. I get these requests every day for people to join, and I have to be selective as to who is joining. What I'm doing is I'm looking at everyone's profile, and I'm trying to determine, does this person look like they have an interest in HIM? And, it doesn't have to be in Florida, but do they look like the health information management field could potentially be their field of study? Or are they somebody who's trying to get in our group to spam us? Because we have had people, and we consistently have people who will get in the group and they're trying to promote their products. And that's not the point of the group. The point of the group is to share industry knowledge, functions that are going on within FEHIMA and NEFHIMA, et cetera. So, along with being selective with your profile picture, I can't tell if a lotus flower or if a grayed out egg is an actual person or not. It kind of looks like a spammer. Network properly, and then if you care to be seen on Facebook, post updates. That's pretty self-explanatory. All right, that's all we're talking about Facebook right now. We're going to go into Twitter. Twitter is the social media network I actually get the most questions on. I get a lot of people who talk about not understanding what a tweet is, so we're going to very briefly go over that. But then after I get you to understand what a tweet is, I'm going to give you some tips on how to actually make it work for your HIM career. So very quickly, the anatomy of a tweet, I've picked 3 tweets here. 2 of them are tweets I did for FEHIMA. One is a tweet that I did on my own personal account. And the point of these is to show some different ways that we're using some of the elements of Twitter. I just want to explain what they mean. So the top tweet is something I did obviously on May 16th. You can see the Florida HEMA handle, Twitter handle. Twitter handle basically means that's our screen name that we use. And I've used a couple hashtags in here. So hashtag is one of the most confusing things, I think, to people who are new to Twitter. They don't understand it, but basically it makes a term or a phrase searchable. So if you were to click on my hashtag AHIMA, it would pop up a list of everyone who used that hashtag AHIMA in Twitter, and you can sort by most recent or the most popular tweets that had that hashtag in it. And what this does is it allows you to be part of a conversation beyond people you're directly connected with on Twitter. So this is how people can tweet celebrities or become part of Twitter rallies. They will start using hashtags. They become more searchable. Their base grows from there. And the end of this tweet is the hashtag HIM social. And what I am doing there is trying to insert this tweet as part of the HIM social conversation. If you look at the health information technology sector, they have a huge, just an enormous audience on Twitter. They are tweeting thousands of tweets a day, and the hashtag that they have come up with an aggregate hashtag for all of those tweets. It's hashtag HIT, they're usually capitalized, and then SM. So it stands for Health Information Technology Social Media. And it doesn't matter if they're capitalized or not. It just needs to be in that order. And that's how they follow in the health information technology world, the conversation. So at these large conferences like at HIMSS, for example, they're consistently having tweet ups where people are tweeting and meeting, and I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Well, we didn't have one for HIM. So at the West Virginia, the NEFHIMA, West Virginia NEFHIMA show, I should say, convention last year, this was thrown out there as a potential aggregate to get us all together as one general conversation. And it's been slowly, you know, getting some legs under it. But it's a good one for you to either play around with and try to understand hashtags by clicking on that hashtag or typing it in the search box on Twitter. And again, I mentioned that Twitter video that I did for FHIMA, so if you want to see exactly how you do that, my Twitter video shows that on the FHIMA.org homepage. Additionally, I did have 2 mentions in here. So a mention is where I'm talking about an individual person or a company, and in this case, I am doing, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell people to follow the president-elect nominees for NEFHIMA. The @scary 10,000, that is Susan Carey. And then you can see Valerie's Twitter handle is a little more straightforward. So you can see that they are tagged in here. What this does is I've mentioned them. They now get a notification saying, you've been mentioned in this tweet by FHIMA. Additionally, as a person who is viewing the tweet, you can click on both of those Twitter handles and you can go directly to their profile. So this is really how people are contacting each other individually or mentioning people in tweets. It's giving them recognition. And then you can see that underneath that in the light gray, 3 people have retweeted it, which are the arrows that go in a circle. And that means 3 people have liked my tweet enough that they wanted to broadcast it under their own Twitter name. And so that has gone out. And then 4 people liked my tweet as of whenever I took this screenshot. Other ways that people are using tweets to get their message out in I guess, a better manner are by adding links. So in the bottom left, you can see I added a link to an NEFHIMA resources article in the Journal of NEFHIMA. And so I was able to do so by putting in the link address for there. I also added on the right what's called media. And media was considered photos or videos. I will tell you the stats kind of vary all over the place, which is why I don't have a specific stat to share with you. But when you add an element of a picture or video, I want to say it's somewhere in the lines of 50 or 60%. You have a greater chance of that tweet actually being seen. And it's pretty, you know, self-explanatory. A lot of people just like to see pictures, which is part of the reason why Instagram has taken off. So if you really want your tweet to stand out among a bunch of text, add images to help. And the other fun fact about that bottom right tweet is you can see I used the hashtag FHIMA hashtag, and then I used the mention @HR Grand Cypress. So that is the Twitter handle for the actual hotel we're staying at for the Florida NEFHIMA convention. And they got the notification that I tweeted this, and they've been retweeting my message, which is just amplifying my message to their audience and beyond, and continuously putting me or my tweet, our tweet, at the top of the conversation again. So again, these are all kind of the elements. I know that they are characters that are obviously, we're using the ampersand and the hashtag. They're different than our normal alphabet, but once you start really understanding them, they just kind of, you ignore all of that noise and it just becomes normalized. So what happens next? So you have on your Twitter page, you have your mentions tab and your notifications tab. So I go on my notifications tab, and you can see the screenshot here. Basically, if you look at the very middle tweet there where it has Leslie Hodge, congrats, Susan Carey, that was my initial tweet. So I was telling Susan Carey, one of the president-elect candidates, congratulations for making the NEFHIMA ballot. I used the NEFHIMA hashtag. We can't see the whole tweet here, but I probably used hashtag HIMSocial. And so what she did was, within 4 minutes, she liked my tweet. So she got the notification, probably on her phone, and she liked that tweet. Then within 11 minutes, she's replied to it saying, you know, thank you, I'm honored. So I got the notification that she appreciated the tweet and then that she wanted to say something back to me. Well, the interesting part of this exchange, and this is all actually very early on a Sunday morning, ironically, Valerie on the top here is actually her competitor in that in the president-elect role for NEFHIMA. And Valerie must have seen this interaction because I was using hashtags that are searchable, and she's decided to follow me. So that's literally, and you can see this all happened within a few minutes of each other. That's literally how quickly Twitter can happen. They say that tweets have the most visibility in the first hour of tweeting. So if there's a message that you have tweeted at some point and 3 days later it hasn't gotten much response, you might want to consider tweeting it again. So building your brand on Twitter, this is just how you kind of build your network, and I promise you, Twitter only becomes more fun when you start interacting and you build the people that you're connected to in your audience. So I would suggest you learn Twitter, set up your profile, be active every day. You'll start to understand the conversation. Follow at least 2 new people a day, and I'm going to show you a good kind of rule of practice how to do that from the HIM standpoint. If you want to discover and retweet at least 2 top items, if we go back to that last slide, you can see here's some trending items on the left side, or you can retweet about 2, or you can tweet about 2 of the top items in HIM. Check your notifications. So if people are liking you or retweeting you, you don't want to be rude and ignoring them. So make sure that you are going back and forth. It's supposed to be considered a conversation. Favorite any retweets, follow anyone back. Using hashtags obviously will get your message further faster. And then at the bottom, tweet at least 2 trends. You don't have to do this, especially if you're trying to keep your conversation limited to HIM. But you know, for example, when ICD-10 before it happened, you know, you might be tweeting trends about ICD-10 at least twice a day or whatnot. The other thing to think about this is, you know, the times that you're tweeting to. You want to be tweeting at high volume times. So like I said, follow at least 2 new people a day. What you can do is you can kind of easily search some different resources that might, you know, be someone you might want to follow. So if you are really trying to follow people within the HIM field, you might go to the NEFHIMA Twitter handle. So NEFHIMA Resources is the official NEFHIMA Twitter page. And you might look at who they are following. So clearly they have, if you can see here on their screen, they've got almost 16,000 followers, or when I took that screenshot they had, and they're only following 380 people. So clearly they're being very selective with who they're following. You can click on that following tab and see exactly who that is. And I'll show another example of that in a minute. You can follow leaders in your industry. So if you want to take a screenshot of this or look at the presentation, as Lee said later, it's on Knowledge Connect. Here's a list, and this is by no means at all a comprehensive list of HIM leaders that are tweeting, but I wanted to put this together from a national standpoint of some people that if you kind of follow what they're doing, you'll start to really get it. Interestingly, Brad Justice at the bottom, he's actually my social media mentor. He's got, I think he's got about 16,000 Twitter followers. He tweets, you know, all the time. He has created, if you go on his page, he's created a list of HIM people that are using the HIM social hashtag and are consistently tweeting about HIM related topics. So that might be something to check out on Brad's profile. See who other leaders are following. So like I said, this is Ray Freeman, so she's going to be president-elect here at NEFHIMA. I used her as an example because her profile aligns perfectly with some leaders in HIM and how it appears when you click on that following tab. So you can see she has Valerie, Ann, and Kathy up there. She's going to be able to see everything that they're doing in her Twitter, in her feed, her news feed. But if you want to click on that blue follow button, or I guess I'm following them already, but if the button was unfollowed, you'd be able to click on that button and very easily follow those leaders as well. So some more tips for success. Build meaningful relationships without just broadcasting aimlessly. Sure, you can vent or whatnot, you know, say that you want to highlight somebody from The Voice so they're not eliminated. You can still do that, but make sure that at least some of the stuff that you're doing has some meaningful content to it, has a reason for people to respond to you. Tweet at optimal times a day. So There's some very popular times a day they say, and if you look at the FEHIMA tweets, I typically try to follow this rule. Around the hour mark, so that would be potentially when somebody's getting maybe out of a meeting or their time is freeing up. Lunchtime, another option is first thing in the morning when somebody wakes up. A lot of people will pick up their phone, and if they're not going to Facebook, maybe they're going to Twitter, so tweet when you think they're waking up. Also keep in mind different time zones, and then use the 80-20 rule. So if you're trying to be an HIM guru in the space and that's what you want to tweet about, try to make 80% of the content what your goal is in terms of your tweets, your profile, and 20% about you. Jump into the fray. Don't be afraid to insert yourself into conversation. This is not like when you're meeting with people in a social setting. You can totally jump in the middle of a conversation and try to engage. And that's how you start to really get your traction within Twitter. I mentioned the lists earlier. Like I said, there's different ways to look at how lists are set up. We could go on and on about that, but I don't want to get too in the weeds. I think I could probably do a second video on that. Tweet with purpose, so just make sure that what you're doing is meaningful, but also be yourself. Nobody wants to feel like they're talking to a robot. You want what you're having come out as interesting. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn. So what I find is I get the most questions also about LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has recently gone through an update. If you have not gone on recently, then you probably should. Your profile probably looks a little different than it used to look in the past. Interestingly, when I was creating this presentation, I'd had a former version of it, and I had to basically reproduce half the slides because LinkedIn no longer looks like what I had originally put together. So we're going to talk about your ideal LinkedIn profile. I'm not going to show you exactly how to set everything up, but I'm going to give you some tips. As we mentioned earlier, I have been trained by LinkedIn, and I'm connected to them from a professional standpoint, and so I'm constantly getting tips and tricks as to how to work the database better. I will admit I do have a paid subscription to LinkedIn. However, I'm going to have some tips and tricks at the end of this as to ways to use your ninja skills to get further without having to pay for a subscription. So we're going to talk about your photos. You want a good profile photo. You want it to be clear. If we were in person, I would offer to take a picture of you up against, potentially a plain wall. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to look as you would want to appear, whether it's a professional headshot or at least something where you're not cropping people out, where you're not going for a selfie. You want it to be a professional representation of yourself. And the big no-no, probably the biggest of all, is the no photo, because again, it kind of appears like you could be a robot. So this is interesting. On the left, we have your headline. So in a lot of profiles I see, people have their actual job title in this line. And what LinkedIn says, and I'm kind of on the fence about how I feel about this. My headline does look like this, where I have a series of things that I want people to know about me and buzzwords. But LinkedIn feels that this is the way that people should go versus having their job title. They feel that kind of puts somebody in a box. And if you really want to position yourself as a subject matter expert, then sell yourself as that in your headline. Location and industry is pretty self-explanatory. Contact info. So this looks a little different than it used to. We have a lot of people that I find that they don't actually fill out this section, and that's interesting to me because a lot of what LinkedIn is about is connecting with people, being open to what's out there. If they don't have a way to connect with you, then it makes you it's just harder for them. So make sure you update your information. I'm going to talk in a second about your URL. So just look at the top here where it says your profile, and it has linkedin.com/in/Lesley Hodge. I had to actually personally modify that to say that, because this is what it ends up really looking like. So LinkedIn will give you what the bottom example is here. It says linkedin.com/pub. It gives a version of your name, and it gives a series of numbers and characters. all you need to do is just go in and edit that and just put your name in, and it just looks a lot cleaner. That way, if you want to include it in a resume or send it to somebody to find you in an email, it's just got a more professional look about it. That's actually one of the top tips that LinkedIn tells people on a daily basis. So your summary. Your summary should be written in the first person, so I see that incorrect a lot. You want to speak to who you are broadcasting your information to, and you want to use keywords because these summaries are searchable. So make sure that you're not selling yourself short. You're not making this a 2-sentence summary. It doesn't have to be quite as long as this, but certainly it is to think about. If you want to be searchable, you need to kind of give them some meat to search. I would say I like using this as an example. This is actually not my summary. I think this is Brad Justice's summary. I like how he has things bulleted out. It's not one giant paragraph. It's fairly easy to read. Your eyes jump to what's important. So again, you don't have to have it as long as this, but just think about those elements when somebody is reading it that does not know you personally. Multimedia. So there's an ability to put files about yourself or about your company or whatever you're trying to do on your page. So this is directly under your profile. It's called Multimedia. You can see I've got 14 different forms here. So I don't know that there's a limit on the number of files you can attach, but if you've been published in any journals, if there's something that's significant that you've worked on that you want to highlight, this is a great area to put that on there. Personally, it's a great reference area for me when I'm like, okay, where did I put that, bio about whatever. I can quickly go to my LinkedIn page and grab it. So it's almost like a cloud filing system in that instance for me. Publications. So this is something that I personally am trying to work on more. If you've ever been a blogger or had aspirations to be a blogger, this is a great place to start. So there is an ability, a very, very easy tool on LinkedIn to write articles. And keep in mind, articles could be on anything. So if you want to be a subject matter expert in fiber arts and you're into spinning and yarn, I mean, you could be writing articles about that. But basically, these articles can go viral. If you've ever liked one or you've ever commented on one, that's been broadcast to your network. So it's, again, a great way to show your skills or who you are and put yourself out there, versus having your bio sit there stagnant and reactive. It's kind of more of a proactive way to engage in LinkedIn. So I included a photo here of Lisa Gibbons talking about mentoring the next generation of girls at a Girl Scout luncheon. And I wrote about some of the key points that I felt were very important to that. I'm very active with the Junior League of Tampa. I have a passion about children and education, and so that's why I chose to write about that particular topic. But I need to be doing that more often. So anyways, and you can click on the button if you wanted to see all my articles. And you can see at the time the screenshot was taken, I've got over 1,900 people following me that could potentially have seen that particular article. And then their network, if they started liking it or commenting on it, it just, again, amplifies whatever I've written about. So you can start small, but you could really get into this. Accomplishments. So this is a change on LinkedIn. This used to be kind of 3 different sections. They've now condensed it into one, so you can see some different awards and organizations. When you list your organizations, for example, if the organization is on LinkedIn, you have a way to link it to the profile. Again, then you become searchable by being attached to that organization. So this is an important, especially the organizations tab is an important one to focus on. Your experience, we're not going to go into this. This is kind of the resume part of the profile. But again, like I said, pointing out kind of an easy to read one here with different bullets and not big, long bodies of words that don't get somebody excited about reading things quickly. Volunteer experience, pretty self-explanatory here, but this is another way to highlight people. I've gotten job offers based off of my volunteer experience alone, nothing based on my actual paid experience. And so just, again, another way to elevate your profile and reach others out there. this is a little distorted, but recommendations are a really good way of showing who you are and getting a testimonial that will live on your LinkedIn profile for quite some time. So I would say recommendations should be varied. So you shouldn't have all your friends or all your family members. You should really think about who you want to get recommendations for. And I can tell you the most passive-aggressive way to get a recommendation is to find someone that you would like to get a recommendation for and write a recommendation for them. So you can go to their profile, write a recommendation for them, they'll see it, and a lot of times they'll write a recommendation in return as a thank you, or you can simply ask them for a recommendation on there as well. So again, great way to give a little testimonial that you were a great coworker, or you did a great job in a certain project, etc. So some great groups to join, and there's a couple of reasons why this is important, but I listed some groups here that fall kind of in the HIM world. Again, you can find this list on the copy of the presentation on the Knowledge Connect site. Interest. So this is a little different. So this is how the profile used to be broken up. Groups used to be a little bit different than the people you followed. Now they've kind of joined everybody together. So this is a screenshot from my own personal profile of some different groups I'm sitting in and people that I follow. Now, this is important. In a couple minutes, we'll talk about it, but I want to show you while we're sitting in this slide. If I have a group connection to somebody, the more likely I am to appear in their feed, and also the greater ability I have to actually write them a direct message if I want to. So I would always say join a lot of groups in whatever type of industry or field you are interested in connecting with people in. Status updates. So I think this is the last component we'll talk about, but I'm sure you've seen when you log into your main page on LinkedIn, there is a feed. It's just like on Facebook where you see what people are doing and what they're posting. So I thought this was an interesting example of one. So an individual named Lori Hennessy, I do not know her, on LinkedIn, she included this image attached to an article she wrote. So I do not know Lori, I'm not connected to Lori, but you can see how many likes and how many comments she has received on this particular article. This article popped up in my feed because Jessica Evans liked it. So I then clicked on the link, read it, good article. But that's just an example, like I said, when you put stuff out there and people start engaging with it, it really amplifies your message. Just like with Twitter, the more engagements you get, the more you appear. So that's for status updates. So now I've kind of gone through the profile. You may have known some of that information. Hopefully there was something that you didn't know. But we're now going to talk about how to become a LinkedIn Ninja over the last few minutes here before questions. So I'm going to give you 5 tips here as to things that you can do on LinkedIn that will, get you to maybe use it in a different manner than you've been using it in the past. So free InMail to LinkedIn group members. So this goes back to my example when I paused and had everybody look at the groups in that interests box. So a little known fact, LinkedIn gives you 15 free messages per month to people that you share a LinkedIn group in common with. Why is this important? Maybe you want to reach out to Susan, Carey, or Valerie, and I cannot say Valerie's last name, Waltzloff maybe, about their NEFHIMA campaign. If you didn't want to connect with them but you wanted to send them an InMail, maybe you're both part of that NEFHIMA group, and that would give you the ability to do that. The important thing to know is that you get 15 free messages per month across all of your groups, not per group. So you need to be selective if you're really using that InMail feature. And if you don't know what InMail is your way to direct message somebody. Just like you can direct message on Facebook or Instagram, this is your way to send them a message. It actually will go to their email that's tied to LinkedIn. So that's important for some people. Make sure you're doing this to people that you have second or third degree connections with. If you have a first degree connection with somebody, so you've already connected with them, you can already send them an InMail without needing to have a paid account or not using your 15 free messages per month. So this is really a way to do this without without having to pay for something. With a paid account, you can InMail anybody. The use the people also viewed feature. So here's an example of how on the profile you can see people also viewed. So if you're looking at somebody's profile or even looking at your own profile, this is a good way to find people to connect with that might be like you. So I would consider clicking on them. Oh, sorry. Personalize your connection requests in your apps. This is cool. I was not aware of this at the time. But, before when you would reach out to somebody, say you were sitting on your app on LinkedIn with your phone and you would try to connect with somebody, it would just allow you to send a connection request. But sometimes you want to send a personal message with that request, like, hi, Cal, I'm connecting with you because you and I have a mutual friend in whoever. You couldn't do that on your Android or your iPhone. Now you can. So I've showed the example here in the images. The top right 3 buttons, you click there now, and it will send you to these options. So you can see you can personalize the invite, and you can type in that message at that time. So that's kind of a recent change on LinkedIn. Conversation suggestions. So maybe you want to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, but you don't know what to say. Well, LinkedIn has decided that they're going to take the wallflower out of you, and they're going to go ahead and comment or give you some options when you click on the need ideas on how to reach out light bulb button. And I think that's interesting. Obviously it's not going to be foolproof, and it might come up with something inappropriate. But and I don't mean inappropriate on a professional standpoint, but just might not be relevant to that person. So, just be cognizant, but at least it can kind of jog you as to how you should start speaking to somebody on that message. And then using Reportive. So this is neat. If you go to reportive.com, this is a free Gmail plugin. It replaces the ads on the right side of your screen and puts the elements of that person's LinkedIn profile if they have one. So this is a free feature. Like I said, it's a plugin, so if you have certain security features on your computer, it might be a little harder to get this up and running. But I think it's a little more interesting to look at than some of the ads that pop up on my Gmail account. So I think this is a kind of a fun feature that some people don't know they can use. So that's reportive.com. So how do you reach Leslie for questions? So you can email me. If you email socialmedia@fahima.org, that goes directly to me. Of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can tweet me. I'm happy to answer your questions. I spoke to a group in Michigan a couple weeks ago. I've already been fielding some messages, and even they've been bouncing ideas on how to reach out to certain people on LinkedIn, etc. I'm even happier to do that for you all than I am for the Michigan folks, since you are my people. So like I said, certainly reach out on that. And that's all I've got. So I'm open for questions, Lee, if anybody has any.
How does my local chapter know that I do not use Twitter? I have actually had the former president of our chapter send me an email admonishing me for not Twittering or tweeting. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. If you don't want to join Twitter, the other 2 media sites are trade. So.
Okay, well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, we are having a lot, we do pressure a lot to join, Facebook and Twitter and that type of thing. And my question is about Twitter, actually, because what really, Leslie, is the point of Twitter? Because I really don't quite understand it. I mean, it seems like an awful lot of work to tweet, just a few characters on something, so I'm not really quite sure what the point is.
Okay, valid question. And I think this is where people kind of get stumped with Twitter, and they create an account and then they just let it fall flat. But the point of Twitter is to get in a conversation with people that could be on a global on a global basis, or it could be on a national basis, but you can be tweeting with people and talking to them, connecting with them, especially using those hashtags, that you would have never connected with them on Facebook because you're not friends with them. And so the point is, if you're having a conversation, whether it's about HIM or, for example, we do, the Hill Day tweet with NEFHIMA, the point is to be able to broadcast that message further. So some people are using Twitter as almost like a Pinterest board to gather information or newsworthy updates in the HIM industry. That's what they're using Twitter for. Others want to connect to people and talk to them about what they're doing. Now, you only have 144 characters in a tweet, right? So you can't really say too much in a single tweet. But that's kind of the point. So, some people just want to pick up a phone and talk to somebody. It's just really more of a way to connect. And I don't know that that's a super clear answer. I'm trying to think of a better way to say it. But
yeah, I think that, from my perspective, so we try, and I'm the old school type person, so when we're in meetings and stuff and, you look around and people are on their phone, you don't know if they're actually tweeting or if they're playing a game or something. So it's kind of distracting. And I know that in our spring seminar, we were trying to, Jerry has been really good about teaching me to tweet, and I felt so self-conscious about while the presenters were actually speaking, I'm on my phone because, again, as being an old HIM person, I'm used to putting everything down and listening to the speaker, so it was a little bit distracting. We have a lot of Twitter rallies, and, I'm not sure, it seems like a whole lot of work to do these Twitter rallies, and what message are people actually reading them?
Yeah, and I think that's where the getting connected with, the larger your audience grows, right? So the further your message is. And it also depends on when that audience is logging in, because Twitter moves pretty quickly. And like I said, if somebody doesn't see your message within an hour, then you kind of disappear down their feed. So, the tweet never goes away, but you just have to scroll so long to see what that person said. You're maybe not even getting there. So I agree with you. I feel self-conscious personally, too. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I did walk up to the presenter before the conference started, and I just said, just so you know, or I think I asked permission, do you mind if I live tweet during your presentation? And he was like, absolutely not. And I did that so that I would not feel that guilt of appearing to be rude. And I made sure when I was tweeting to tag the presenter, to give them credit throughout, to give them quotes and things of that nature. So, they were very appreciative actually, because I was getting their message out or their brand out to my followers at that time. So I definitely see what you're saying. From a Hill Day perspective, for specifically, what we're trying to do when we do a Twitter rally for Hill Day is to really get the message out there that our HIM team is out there, advocating for HIM and advocating for some of the bills that are important to us. So it's more about trying to be seen and be heard. Additionally, what we were trying to do that day was we were adding the Twitter handles for the representatives that we were meeting with in Tallahassee, for example. So they were retweeting us, Senator Bill Nelson or his representatives, I suppose, would potentially like our tweet or retweet it. And again, it's just showing people what we're doing as an organization. So I don't think you're going to make your best friends necessarily on Twitter, but like I said, it allows you to connect with people across the country. So another example is Brad Justice. Like I said, he'll go to HIMS, and he's actually a HIMS social media ambassador. And so they'll do tweet ups. Well, they'll all tweet, a place to meet up, and they actually meet up in person. So, and then they take pictures of each other and they talk and they share ideas. But had they not had that tweet up, he would have never, A, interacted with those people, or B, ever met them in person at a convention with 25,000 people. So it's kind of like, different things for different people. Certainly if it's something where you really don't feel like you're ever going to engage in it, or your purpose is not really to get a message out there, then maybe it's just the social network you don't focus on.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
Leslie, I have one question, just kind of thinking here with this, and we've mentioned, this is Jerry, by the way, we've mentioned Twitter rallies, we've mentioned different, pushes for various advocacy efforts and stuff like that. I think that one of the things that I've heard concern with along the way is that if these senators, these representatives, these groups are getting such a large influx of tweets, are we really being effective? Because do they effectively have time to go through that material? And I think that's one of the things that may hold people back, is because they, not only timing, but just the fact that, is there any kind of actual effective outcome? How do we know that we're getting any kind of actual FaceTime per se with these people we're actually tweeting when we're doing these Twitter rallies?
Well, so there are analytics on Twitter, and if you go on that Twitter video that I do, there's an easy way to see what your reach is on every tweet, so you can kind of see what your impact is. It won't tell you that Bill Nelson saw your tweet unless he actually likes it and you see that in your mentions. Like I would not be able to see that on your tweet. You could probably see it from your own personal profile. But I will say, a lot of them do have, they do have some sort of social media strategy. And so, it's just understanding that, maybe even researching your candidates beforehand and looking at their Twitter profile to see if they're actually doing anything on Twitter. If they haven't tweeted for 9 months, they're probably not very active. And the only kind of cool example I have here in Tampa was I had a friend who was running on the Riverwalk one night, and the lights had changed over daylight savings, and she said, it's too dark. And I tweeted our mayor here, Bob Buckhorn, and within 3 days the lights were. I heard from his representative that they would be turning on the lights, and thanks for notifying them. So I think it's just timing sometimes of being heard, but if you don't put it out there, then I guess you can't say that you're going to be heard either way.
Okay. I don't have any questions online. Anybody else?
Yeah, we don't have any questions that are typed in.
Okay.
Do you need to unmute them or anything?
No.
Okay, so yeah, everybody's unmuted from our end. All right, does anyone, here you go.
Okay, Dale, yes, this recorded session, and actually that kind of segues me into one of the things that I wanted to say. So from our perspective on social media, we certainly encourage all of our members to go out there and join our Facebook page and to join follow us on Twitter, because it's not just posting about advocacy. We're actually come across various articles, various webinars and events like that we're posting out there. And it's easy to separate those, like on Facebook, to separate from the wall, because when you join a group, you can actually click on the group on the side and go and look at the various information. So we do ask that you join. Obviously, it's not a requirement, but the more the merrier. It's more information to spread and to support your fellow people. But specifically in response to your message, Dale, this recorded session is actually going to be out on YouTube. Northeast FEHIMA now has a channel out there, and so we will be putting these up if you want to go back and look at them, as well as the fact that the handouts from this meeting, the actual PDF file, when you get your CEU evaluation form, there will be a link on there for handouts, so you can actually look at the PDF documents as well. So please come out and join us on the YouTube site. We're going to be, it is slow in coming up. We've got May 4th out there on the YouTube site now. We've got some stuff from our student forum, and we're working slowly on fixing all the videos and getting the stuff from the spring seminar up. So that's going to be a new source, another way to talk about things and spread our message.
Yeah, okay, one other last thing I forgot to mention, we did recently start an Instagram account for Florida HEMA. So if you want to look for the same Florida_HEMA as our Twitter handle, we have that on Instagram. And certainly for any events that you guys have within your region, please email me or send me the pictures, and I'm happy to post those on there.
That is great. Thank you, Leslie. We really do appreciate this. Oh, wait, there's a question that popped up. Leslie, would you have any advice? Let's see. Would you advise having a private Facebook account versus a professional one?
I would say, sure, you definitely can. I see some people do it that join the NEFHIMA page because I can determine their alias. But if you want to be incognito and have that locked down and only for your family and friends, and then have this one professional, I say why not? There's the ability to do it now where that was limited before.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Leslie. We do appreciate it. We learned a lot today, and you answered my question on Twitter and what is the purpose. So now I'm comfortable.
Great. Well, thank you, and I
thank
look forward to tweeting with y'all.
All right. Take care. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. If you called into the meeting and did not log on, please make sure you email us and let us know so you can get your CEU. Thank you.
Thank you.